Hello and welcome to Anime Animosity. A bad ending doesn't ruin a story, especially when that ending isn't even bad. But bad is subjective. Anyhow, as of writing the script and recording this video, I've just finished watching the anime for Alderamin on the Sky. And curious as to where the story headed, I looked into what happened. Now, this may seem immensely stupid. Why would I look into what happened and take other people's accounts instead of just reading the rest for myself, given that I did really enjoy the anime adaptation? Well, the main reason was that I had seen glimpses of people's opinions on the show and the ending of the source material, and other moments in the comments on Crunchyroll while I was watching it, and I wanted to hear a little bit more. And from that, I found that the common opinion is that the ending to Alderamin is disappointment, that it has a bad ending, that it goes quote unquote downhill, albeit that I've paraphrased and effectively made up. The downhill part, at least. Now, while everyone is entitled to having their own opinion, I find myself struggling to see things from the same perspective as the majority, even though my whole understanding of the ending has come from people that dislike it, and as such are likely to downplay it and talk about it in a negative light. But why do I disagree? Well, that's the point of this video, to convey my opinion. But first, before we get into the main topic, there are a few disclaimers that I will have to make. First, the obvious, there will be spoilers in this video for the Alderamin anime and the original source material. Second, my knowledge of the events past the end of the anime is limited, and as I have not read the source material, I do not know what happens with the quality of the writing. I also do not know every detail of every event that takes place. So please bear in mind that my stance is based on information I have gathered from other people through word of mouth. So it may be slightly incorrect or biased. And with that out of the way, let's get into it, shall we? So, one of the bigger takeaways I got from my quote unquote research was that some people are unhappy that Yatori dies during Volume 6. There are some that see her death as necessary for the story, and I would have to agree with the latter group. Leading up to her death, Yatori is ordered to kill Ikta, which shouldn't come as a huge surprise, given how the potential of it happening is brought up a handful of times, even during the anime. This leads to her doing as she said she would, killing off her individuality and becoming purely an Exam. This then leads to a battle between Ikta and Yatori, where comrades are killing comrades, and from what I've heard, it is, understandably, a tragic battle. At the climax, Yatori and Ikta are face to face. Yatori prepared to follow through with her orders as she has been raised her whole life. As they face off, Yatori is aware of 4 snipers, though suspiciously only 2 are targeting her. The others have their sights set on Ikta. In a mere moment, Yatori leaps toward Ikta, taking all 4 shots. She shortly dies in Ikta's arms, mere moments after regaining her sense of self. The reason that I've seen for people saying that Yatori's death being necessary is that if she hadn't died how she did, then there would have been little motivation for the story to continue. And while I agree with that, I believe that there is more to it. Ikta wanted to take Yatori away from, as he puts it, this land with no future. To save her, if you will, from the fate of following orders her whole life. The final scene of the anime further cements this idea, with Ikta stating, "The one thing I won't allow is you getting caught up in the collapse of the country. That's why I came to take you, Yatori. Please tell me you'll be the one person not to forget that." To which Yatori responds, "I could never forget that, even if I wanted to." This final piece of dialogue gives us just about everything we need to quote-unquote justify Yatori's death. But to that, you might be thinking, but from what you said, she did die getting caught up in the country collapsing, and I can't completely deny that fact. However, I would argue that the core message of Ikta's words are that he doesn't want her being forced into it. If she gets involved, it should be of her own free choice. We know that Ikta is very particular with wording and taking advantage of it, so I'll do just the same to support my own argument. Taking that into account, Yatori's death essentially fulfills her promise to Ikta. She didn't get caught up in it fully. Her final moments, her final choices, were made by her and her alone. She fought against the resolve that she had stuck to for her entire life to protect someone she cared about. Now, some of you may be thinking that things could have been written in a way where Yatori lives and the truth of why the snipers were targeting Ikta is brought to light. And yes, that would probably be possible. And I'm sure many people would be happier with that outcome. But remember, Alderamin is a story with a heavy focus on war. Primarily tactics, but war. And if you fight on a battlefield without resolve, you will almost certainly die. This is a message that is pressed in many, many anime with a war or a combat-focused element. And such is the fate of those that fight. Yatori threw away her lifelong resolve, and it cost her her life. That is the reality of war. The second point I hear dissatisfaction with is that at the end, Ikta is put to death. He is executed, leaving both our male and female leads dead by the story's end. It makes sense as to why people would be unhappy with this result. Once again, this is not a happy story. It's about war, and war is a fundamentally tragic thing, even more so when religion and politics get involved. That answer probably won't satisfy many of you, so I shall further justify my claim that Ikta's death was reasonable from a storytelling perspective. Throughout Alderamin, Ikta repeats that all heroes die of overworking, and that is exactly why Ikta dies. However, this may seem strange to those of you who know the story, as Ikta doesn't refer to himself as a hero, and for most of the story, he isn't set up as one. But think about it. He saves his nation. To many, there isn't much more heroic than that, especially not when you consider the period that Alderamin is based upon. He even saved Yatori to an extent. Even though she died due to her own actions and her own free will. She was taken away from that land with no future. So, even on a smaller scale, he is somewhat of a hero. On top of that, saving a nation isn't an easy feat, especially with the way he was tasked to go about it. And as such, the lazy and invincible Ikta would have had to do some hard work to push himself, leading him to a hero's death. All in all, Alderamin is not meant to be a happy story with a happy ending. Yes, it has warm and positive moments, but at its core, this is a story about war. And in war, people die. Not just soldiers, but people in general. Innocent people, important people, quote-unquote bad people. And as such, I believe that the dissatisfaction toward the ending of Alderamin can be roughly narrowed down to a disparity between the reader's expectations and the writer's purpose for the story. If you enjoyed this video and stuck around all the way to the end, give the video a like and hit the sub button, and maybe even ring the bell if you feel like it. But with all that out of the way, I've been Animosity, you've been you, and I'll get you all next time for another video. Ta-ta for now.